Have you ever stopped to think about how we went from believing a god's temper tantrum caused thunderstorms to understanding atmospheric pressure? It's a huge leap, right? Well, that incredible journey, that pivot from myth to logic, it all started in one place, ancient Greece. So let's dive into this epic story of how we as a species completely rewired the way we think about the world.
So for the early Greeks, the world was basically this grand, dramatic stage, and the directors were a whole family of powerful and, let's be honest, often moody gods. This way of seeing things is called mythos. An earthquake? That wasn't tectonic plates shifting. No way! That was Poseidon, the sea god, slamming his trident into the earth. A big storm? That was Zeus, angry about something and just hurling lightning bolts. Everything was explained through these incredible, divine stories. But then, something totally revolutionary started to happen. A new word and an even bigger idea started to take hold: logos. Instead of asking who was responsible for the storm, a few really daring thinkers started asking what caused it. This was a massive shift from divine stories to reasoned explanations, from myth to logic. And it was this change, this move to logos, that would literally lay the foundation for all of Western philosophy, science, pretty much all of modern thought. Okay, so let's really dig into this great shift. I mean, how did this monumental transition from mythos to logos actually get started? It all kicks off around the 6th century BCE. And interestingly, it doesn't start in mainland Greece. It begins on the coast of what is now Turkey in a place called Ionia. You have to picture these bustling port cities full of trade and new ideas. And it's here that a new kind of person emerges. A thinker who's way more interested in the natural world than in the pantheon of gods who were supposed to be running the show. This first wave of pioneers, we call them the pre-Socratics. And what they were trying to do was just radical. They were the very first people to look at the massive, complicated world around them and ask, is there one single thing that underpins all of this? Thales, for example, he suggested it was all made of water. Then, not long after, Pythagoras comes along and says, nope, it's all about numbers. The universe is governed by mathematics. And this just kicked off this incredible debate. You had Heraclitus arguing that everything is in a constant state of change, while Parmenides fired back that true reality is actually single and totally unchanging. The point isn't who was right, but that the question itself had changed, from which god is doing this to what is this made of? And this quote right here, it just perfectly captures the kind of mind-bending thinking that was going on. Heraclitus' idea that the only thing that is constant is change was a direct challenge to the idea of a stable, predictable, divinely ordered world. It suggested that the universe operated on its own principles, principles that could be observed, debated, and maybe, just maybe, actually understood by the human mind. All right, so now let's travel to the city that took these initial sparks of reason and basically fanned them into a roaring bonfire. We are talking, of course, about Athens, which became the absolute crucible of philosophical thought.
So why Athens? What was so special about this place? Well, it was really a perfect storm of different factors all coming together. You had their new democracy, which meant citizens had to learn how to debate and persuade people. You couldn't just say because, you had to have a reason. Then there was the agora, their central marketplace. It wasn't just for selling olives, it became a marketplace for ideas. And on top of all that, after they defeated the Persians, there was this incredible wave of cultural confidence. It was the perfect environment to start questioning, well, everything.
And all this democratic energy led to some really tough, even uncomfortable questions. I mean, just chew on this one for a second, because it was at the heart of so many debates back then. Just because a majority of people vote that something is true or that something is good, does that vote actually make it true or good? Wow. That one question cuts right to the core of democracy, and it sets the stage perfectly for the thinkers who came next. Okay, so let's get into the big three, the intellectual heavyweights who emerged from this Athenian crucible, and whose ideas, I promise you, still shape the world we live in today. First up, you've got Socrates. This guy was the great questioner of Athens. He actually didn't write a single thing down. Instead, he just wandered around the agora, challenging people on what they thought they knew about things like virtue and justice. His tool was this method of constant, rigorous questioning, what we now call the Socratic method, to show people the flaws in their thinking and get closer to the truth. For him, philosophy wasn't about the cosmos. It was about how you should live your life. His most famous idea? The unexamined life is not worth living. Now, Socrates' star student was Plato. He took the ideas of his teacher and built this massive, intricate philosophical system around them. His most famous concept is probably the theory of forms, this idea that the physical world we perceive isn't the real world, it's just a shadow of a higher, perfect reality of ideal concepts, or forms. His allegory of the cave is this brilliant story he uses to explain it. A philosopher is like a prisoner who escapes the cave of shadows and gets to see the true reality of these forms in the sunlight.
And then we get Plato's student, Aristotle. And if Plato was all about looking up to a world beyond our own, Aristotle brought philosophy crashing right back down to earth. This guy was a true polymath. I mean, he studied everything from biology to politics. He pioneered systematic logic and was a huge believer that knowledge comes from observing the world around us. For Aristotle, the ultimate goal for a human being was something he called eudaimonia, which isn't just happiness, it's more like a state of complete human flourishing.
So this progression is just so cool to see. You have Socrates, who turns the lens of philosophy inward onto ethics and the self. Then his student, Plato, looks upward to this world of ideal forms. And then his student, Aristotle, looks outward to the tangible natural world. Between the three of them, they created this incredibly powerful toolkit for understanding reality from pretty much every angle you can imagine. So here's the really crucial part. These powerful, world-changing ideas didn't stay locked up in Athens. They were about to go global in a big way. So how did this happen? Well, you can pretty much trace the steps. First, the ideas get hammered out and perfected during that Athenian Golden Age. Then, one of Aristotle's most famous pupils, a guy you might have heard of named Alexander the Great, conquers a massive empire. And his armies don't just carry weapons, they carry Greek, or Hellenic, culture with them. This kicks off the Hellenistic period, where Greek philosophy starts blending with local traditions, creating these amazing new centers of learning, like Alexandria and Egypt. And finally, the Romans come along. And while Rome conquers Greece militarily, intellectually, it was the other way around. Greek culture totally conquered Rome. And if you want to get a sense of the sheer scale of this new intellectual world, just look at this number, 500,000. That's the rough estimate for how many scrolls were housed in the Great Library of Alexandria. It was this incredible beacon of learning that collected and shared knowledge from all over the known world. It was an engine for the spread of Greek thought. The impact is, and I'm not exaggerating, almost impossible to overstate. The 20th century philosopher Alfred North Whitehead put it best. He famously said that the entire European philosophical tradition consists of a series of footnotes to Plato. Think about that. That's how foundational the questions these Greek thinkers asked and the systems they built really were. And that really brings us right back to today. Our modern ideas about democracy, the scientific method, our legal systems, even how we think about ethics and living a good life, so much of the DNA of these ideas can be traced right back to that incredible explosion of thought in ancient Greece. So I'll leave you with this final question to think about. 2,500 years later, how much of the world you're living in right now is still, at its core, a Greek world?